fire you are.
Hey vinyl community and YouTubers, this is Chris. I'm got another video to do, recent pickups and some other things that I pulled off the shelf related to this. So starting with, I think I had watched somebody else's video and they showed an Aztec two-step album, and maybe look at it and listen to it, and it seemed appealing, sort of a soft rock, country rock type thing from the early 70s. So here's Aztec two-step. And this is on the Elektra label. This is a radio station copy, white label promo thing. 1972. Yeah. 1972 on Elektra. And then this was another album that I got recently. Holly Near and Ronnie Gilbert. So this is a 1983 tour that they were doing. Ronnie Gilbert of the Weavers, Holly Near, just a sort of a folk artist. This is on the Redwood label at the Great American Music Hall in San Francisco. So, and Norman Masloff may have been at this concert for all I know. There's the label, Redwood, 1983, Holly Near and Ronnie Gilbert. Another sort of female folk release, Liz Meyer. This is from, I think, from 1975 to 1977. Yeah. She was out of Washington, D.C. This is released 1982 on Adelphi Records. And one thing of interest on this is that most of side one, Emmylou Harris was a backup vocalist for it. They've got Mike Aldridge on dobro on several of the tracks, and then fiddle on by Jeff Weezer on several of the other tracks. So sort of a folky, slightly on the bluegrass side, Liz Meyer. Another folk album I picked up, Gordon Bach. Usually he's in a trio, but this is a rogues gallery of songs for 12-string guitar on the Folk Legacy label. 1983 on this. And another recent acquisition was this Robert Service recites his own poetry. So this is supposedly the only version of the author reciting his own poetry. Other people have done some of it. but repeats it on the back. The only record ever produced of Robert Service reciting poetry. This is on the Golden Nugget label. There's also another edition or version of this on the Bards of Alaska label. 1967, I think. Larry Beck also has one track on here, composed in the style of Robert Service, called The Resurrection of Dan McGrew. Now, if anyone remembers, I showed some other Robert Service related things, starting with this album by Country Joe McDonald of Country Joe and the Fish, War, 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 which are poems from Robert W. Service. And I even showed at least one book of poetry by Robert Service. So to keep up with the poetry theme, here's another album by Peter Bellamy from the he was with the Young Tradition in the early or mid 60s. Barrack Room Ballads. So these are poems by Rudyard Kipling. There's Kipling on the bottom, Peter Bellamy up top. This is on the green Linnet label. Issued 1976. This was another one that I had shown. Rudyard Kipling, Merlin's Isle of Gramarye. On the Argo label. This one I had shown before, but again, more poetry, from Rudyard Kipling by Peter Bellamy. And then Dead Wax 66 had shown a Dave Dudley album. I think it was Greatest Hits, 6 Days on the Road. So I had picked up this one first, Lonelyville. So this is on the Mercury label, and majority of the titles are involving lonely. So like 8 out of 12. Lonelyville, lonely, lonesome. Lonely, lonely, lonesome, lonesome, lonely. So country music, trying to set a mood here. 66 maybe, 67. But what caught my attention from what Randy had said at Dead Wax 66 was Link Ray and the Raymen were the backing band. So this album here, Dave Dudley, On the Road. I think this is from 1964. Released on Guest Star with Dick Williams featuring Link Ray and the Raymen. So this is sort of, country rock, rockabilly. Guest star. Lead off track on side B is Hillbilly Wolf. And final track on side A is Crying for the Moon. So those would all fit into hillbilly rock type things. So Dave Dudley, thanks to Randy for pointing that out. I wouldn't have known about Link Ray's involvement if he hadn't mentioned it. The other day I was at the Antique Mall and I found this album, The Best of Ernie Ashworth, on a Hickory label. And again, I forget what the actual year this was, but mid to late 60s was when this was put out. Hickory, country music, best of. So one of the releases here, I guess the charting single off this album was Talk Back Trembling Lips, which was a John D. Loudermilk track. Also did a Louvin Brothers, I Take the Chance. Bordelot and Felix Bryant, the track I Love to Dance with Annie. Doug Kershaw track and Jimmy J, Sad Face. So he's got some good covers that he selected. Ernie Ashworth. Wasn't familiar with him until I saw the album, and then it just convinced me to buy it. Some early 60s, late 50s folk, the Highwaymen, around the time of the Kingston Trio, the Limelighters. On United Artists, this is called Encore on United Artists label. Don't see the date printed on here, but that early collegiate folk type music. This one's more country rock, if I remember correctly. Thunder. Headphones for Cows. So there's some cows with headphones. On the back you see the band running from cows, or running with the bulls in Paloma. Don't know if that's actually where it is, but that's of the style. Gold stamp promo on the back, though it's just a regular Atco label. $1981. The Stonemans, dawn of the Stoneman age. So sort of pop country on the RCA label. This is 1970. Bad Moon Rising, a Creedence Clearwater cover. Somewhere in here is a Beatles mention, because as Norman Maslow says, there's always some kind of connection, Beatles connections. So, Vassar Clements, Crossing the Catskills on Rounder Records. Rounder Records number 16. This has David Bromberg on guitar supporting him. Vassar Clements on fiddle. Let's see. Oh, here's a Beatles connection. They do a cover of Norwegian Wood. Seemed like there was some other one that tied in, but Give Gilbo, Cajun Country. I think this is his first release on Alshire. Doesn't say when, but late 60s. Give Gilbo. Here's another one by him on the Shiloh label. This one's 1979. Toe Tappin' Music. Shiloh. They do Lodi, another Creedence Clearwater release. Man from New Orleans, which was a John Beeland release. Clarence White's on electric guitar on here. Red Rhodes and Sneaky Pete are both on pedal steel. Toe Tappin' Music, Give Gilbo. And then here's a later incarnation of Flying Burrito Brothers with Give Gilbo. Sneaky Pete Kleinlow, Skip Batten, Greg Harris, and Ed Ponder. $1979 also. On this Regency label. Alright, last couple. I had shown recently a Doug Somm, Freddie Fender collaboration. So here's just a Freddie Fender album before the next Teardrop Falls, one of his big hits. 1975 ABC. .ABC release. And then Freddie Fender Rockin' Country, also on .ABC. Different label. Different version of the label. The Rains Came, which is a Doug Somm song. And this was a recent pickup, Down Home Praise. I think this was due to Dolphin Dale. He had shown this or referenced another album by them. This is a sort of a bluegrass gospel release on the Maranatha label, 1983. Chris Hillman on mandolin, which is the main reason I got it. Al Perkins on dobro. David Mansfield on fiddle. And Dan McCorson on guitars. So this is the one that I most recently picked up a couple months ago. This is the one that I had originally. So there you see Bertie leading at the front of the group. Chris Hillman next to him. I think David Mansfield there. Could be wrong. There's the label. More in this gospel country, gospel bluegrass vein. So David Mansfield was earlier in the Alpha band, Spark in the Dark. This is the 1977 release on Arista label. This band also includes Cindy Bullens, Ringo Starr, so there's another Beatles connection, and T-Bone Burnett, who was pretty much going by the name J. Henry Burnett then, but this is sort of a transitional album. So here's another. So T-Bone Burnett, Behind the Trap Door, still with David Mansfield. This one includes Richard Thompson as in a guest appearance on guitar. And it's on the Demon label. And then David Mansfield, prior to all this stuff, was in this band Quacky Duck. So this is a country folk white label promo release, 1974 on Warner Brothers. David Mansfield. And also from that Maranatha release, Ever Ready Call, Dan McCorson on vocals. So here's his solo album. This one produced by Chris Hillman. More country music on the MCA label. (1977). So there's some recent pickups, some pulls off the shelf that sort of tie together, and they were all in the folk country vein. So thanks everybody for watching, and I'll see you later.